What's up, y'all? I'm Big Fred, and we're back with some fresh off the clock. Um, so I know why you're all here. Before we get this party started, we do have a very important message from our sponsor. Big shout out to Culture Grill and Cantina, now in Bluefield, Virginia, located at 504 Commerce Drive, Bluefield, Virginia. It is Tuesday. That means Taco Tuesday. So on Tuesdays, which is today, you can go in there and grab yourself either a beef or chicken taco for only $1.50. So go eat to your heart's content.
How about this? Sheldon Brown took the field this way. Must be how he looked to Jake Delhomme last week with his 2 interceptions.
Lines up as the tailback. Reeves swings it out to Luke. The ball is knocked away.
Pass against the 4-man rush. Up the seam. Caught by Steven.
Touchdown run. Great position. He's in a trail position. He sees the ball.
This one to the sideline. Williams wasn't looking for it. Sheldon Brown with the interception.
The long pass is intercepted by Sheldon Brown. And the second interception.
What is up, everybody? We are back with some fresh off the clock. And this week, man, we have the coolest thing we've done yet. We've had the founder of ESPN on. We've had a few guys that played in the NFL, but this right here, everyone knows I'm just an Eagles fan through and through. I'm bringing you one of the greatest corners to ever put the midnight green on, Sheldon Brown. Appreciate you,
Eagles
Sheldon.
Nation, what's going on? How we doing, Eagles Nation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go Birds.
Go Birds. Go Birds for sure. Hey, dude, we got Saquon now. It's crazy. The fact that they even let us get him is nuts, man. What?
Yeah, Howie Roseman done a tremendous job getting guys.
Dude, Howie is a wizard for real. That guy, just the way that he does it. Shout out to the Saints, man. We fleece them yearly at this point, Like, shout out to that guy for real. I'm gonna take you back some now. So you're from Lancaster, South Carolina.
I'm from Fort Lawn, South Carolina, actually. Fort Lawn, which is between Chester and Lancaster. Yeah.
Okay.
But I play all my youth sports and stuff in Lancaster, but actually the little town I grew up in was Fort Lawn, South Carolina. Dirt roads, one stoplight.
That'll do it every time. Hey, those towns always produce the best dogs, though, right? You were a dog at running back too. How did you kind of decide which route you wanted to go?
So when I got to college, they were telling me NFL roster, and I know it's hard to say that you're thinking about playing at the professional level, but NFL roster normally cares about maybe 1, possibly 2 running backs, and from a DB standpoint, anywhere from 3 to 4 safeties to 4 to 5 corners on a roster. So those numbers kind of make sense to me. I better learn how to cover a lot.
Hey, math is math. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And now you were there all 4 years at South Carolina and put up a career, 2-time all SEC. You were All American in 2000, first team All SEC in 2001. Now, obviously, you kind of see the field that's been set for college football right now. Now, as someone that done their due diligence and stayed the full 4 years and just grinded that out, what's your thoughts on the whole transfer portal stuff right now?
Well, the game is evolving and it's always evolving, and you always hear about older guys being bitter. I'm not a bitter older player, right? So the world is going to keep evolving. The game was better than the guys that played before me, and of course it's better than it is today than it was when I played, speaking of college and professionally too. I just feel like the professional game has trickled down to college. College is now basically free agency, right? Highest bidder pretty much to the family is going to get the player. If the player gets there, he's not happy, guess what? He may take a pay cut to go somewhere now that he thinks he's happy. Is it right or wrong? Who's to say? Do I agree with it? Probably not, because when I felt like when I had to go through the transition of playing college football, it was more of a family feel, a brotherhood, a true brotherhood, where I knew I was going to be in the foxhole with the same guys for 3 to 4 seasons. So the landscape and the outlook has changed, but kudos to this generation. I just think it's pro football that's trickled down to the NCAA and college football now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, obviously, listing off a few of your accolades in college, you did end up getting drafted in the second round to the Philadelphia Eagles. Did Philly kind of tip to you like, hey, if you're there, we're probably going to take you?
I had no clue that I would end up being in Philadelphia. They did a great job. I know Pat Moore. He was my strength coach at the University of South Carolina, and he used to tell me that Leslie Frazier would always like call and talk to him about me throughout the course of my senior year and going to the Senior Bowl and some of that stuff. But I did not think I would land in Philadelphia. And you have to remember, I was a projected 5th-round pick. So Philadelphia stepped up and they took me in the 2nd round, which, according to Mel Kiper, that was 3 rounds higher than I was.
Yes, sir. And then obviously they took Lito in the first. Now
And
you guys,
so Lito Shepard was the 1st-round corner taken. Mike Lewis was the safety out of Colorado, taken the same year. And then he was 2A, and then I was 2B. They had work where they had 2 rounds in that, 2 picks in that 2nd round. Then we had Brian Westbrook in that graduating class in my draft class. Remember, we had Freddie Millens, who was an all-star wide receiver at Alabama in my draft class. It didn't quite pan out for him in Philadelphia, but he was a good football player. I'm trying to think who else we had in that draft class. I thought it was a pretty good draft class.
I mean, it panned out pretty well. You at least 70% of it, and at that point, that's a hit every time. Now, you and Lito Shepard being back-to-back corners taken, and y'all going on to be one of the greatest tandems in team history. What was that like, just for y'all to kind of grow up together and learn to lead together, and obviously being tied together forever as being first and then obviously 2nd-round picks?
Well, to go back, I had a picture where Lito was returning a punt when he was at the University of Florida, and I was at the University of South Carolina, and I was tackling Lito on one of his punts. So we went back way before that draft and didn't even know it, competing against one another in the SEC. But he was a tremendous competitor. We competed. He was a fun player, always had a smile on his face, brought a lot of joy to practice, and just an upbeat guy. But when your feet hits the grass, I mean, we all were trying to accomplish the same thing, and that's try to be the best we could be in the environment that we're in, and ultimately try to win a national a Super Bowl, which we kind of fell a little short with that class.
Got close though, man. Got close. Some of the biggest, funnest times in Eagles history, but also some of the biggest heartbreaks a fan can imagine. So I bet for a player, dude, that was rough. Now, this is from what I did read that you kind of worked your way up through the pipeline. Year 1, year 2, more special team snaps. Now, if I read correctly, you were actually on the punt coverage team for Miracle in the Meadowlands too, whenever Brian Westbrook returned the punt against the Giants. What was that like watching that play develop live?
Well, you can't really watch plays if you're doing your job. So my job is to make sure the player that I was blocking. Let me go back to say this. John Harbaugh was probably one of the best special teams motivators and coaches in the National Football League, right? So he deserves his head coaching job that he's had for in Baltimore. But he demanded excellence and perfection when he coached us in special teams practice. So in that moment, my job was to make sure the gunner, whoever it may be out there, not go down and get in Brian Westbrook's face to tackle him before he even receives the ball. So you really can't watch it materialize until probably the play was broken, probably 30, 40 yards in front of me, and I can't do anything stupid like clipping the back or something like that. But when the play is going on, you're just playing and you don't even realize it until you go back and watch it as a fan.
Yes, sir. And then now you played for one of the greatest defensive minds in football history, long live him, Jim Johnson.
Absolutely.
What was it like learning from him as just a young man and just learning the game?
Man, so Jim was kind of like that grandfather, like you didn't want to disappoint. And his personality, his aura, the way he communicated was kind of like if you let him down or you felt like you truly let someone down that you loved and knew cared for you. And it crushed you if you felt in the moment. And it was guys like Troy Vincent, Brian Dawkins, Bobby Taylor, Al Harris that still had Jeremiah Trotter, Hugh Douglas. Like they had that type of respect for Jim and they had been in the league probably 6, 7 years before I got there. So you got to think that he was like a great grandfather to a guy like me, watching those veterans respect him the way they did. So it was incredible. And I honestly can say I don't know if my career would have went the way it would have if I didn't have a guy like Jim Johnson, of course, Andy Reid at the helm, but and then those veteran guys that I just named to kind of show me the way the NFL was supposed to work.
Yes, sir. And then once you did get started, you didn't let off the gas at all. 2004, obviously the year that we fell to the Patriots. Right? Sorry, not we, but y'all.
No. We in it together. Let me tell you
Hey,
something. All the success we had was by far the pressure was put on by the community and the fans. You know, like, so I'll just go ahead and jump to it. When I went to Cleveland, 8 years later in my career, like I felt like the media and the fan base, they were not putting the amount of pressure on the players. So in Philadelphia, you can win a game, but the fans and the media are gonna still tell you suck, right? That's just the
yeah.
truth. That's okay. That's fine, right? Because they demand the best and they want you to perform at all costs. And that's how it should be, right? So when I went to Cleveland, we may lose a game by 3, and those fans are kind of like, we almost got it done. And media is like, we almost got it done. Well, in Philly, they just blunt, straight up telling you, we need to replace this guy, even after wins. So I think the dynamic of like media, I think it plays a role in some athletes' careers because you need to feel that pressure to perform all the time, so you don't let your guard down.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Who was it that just said it? It might have been Jason Kelsey that, like, obviously, if you give that city everything you have, they'll give it right back to you. But now, if you do mess up, they're gonna let you know. But if you get back up and just keep on going, you will never pay for a beer in that city ever again.
And I agree with him 100% on that.
Now, 2004, y'all beat Michael Vick's Falcons in the NFC Championship game when just that was surreal too, dude. I'm getting chills.
Yeah, what do you remember from that? Brian Dawkins hitting Vic on the goal line.
What, dude? Brian Dalton said that was the hardest hit he's ever given in his career. I believe it either knocked Vic out or it knocked Dalton's out, but like that right there was a hit, dude. And then the infamous just Brian Dalton's hallelujah was crazy, dude. What was that like and just leading up to the week of obviously playing the Patriots?
So I think if I can remember, didn't we lose? So the year before I was drafted, I think they lost to the St. Louis Rams, right? Which was in the NFC Championship game. Wasn't that the year before I was drafted? They lost to the St. Louis Rams, I think the greatest show on turf with Kurt Warner, Torrey Holt, and those guys. And then the year I came in, I think we lost to, didn't we lose to Tampa Bay?
Yeah, was that the Rondé Barber pick six?
I think it was either Tampa Bay or the Panthers. So I'm trying to remember which one it was because we lost 2 in a row when I was there before we made it. So they lost to St. Louis, and then we lost to, I want to say it might have been the Panthers because the corner had Ricky Manning Jr. had 3 interceptions. No, that would have been in the vet. No, that was in the link. That was the first year in the link that we lost to Carolina. So we had to lose to Tampa Bay at the link my second year. Not my first year. So okay, they lost to St. Louis and I wasn't there. Then I was drafted. Then we lost at the last year at the vet. We lost to Tampa Bay when Rondé Barber picked that ball up like the 2.
That was the last
Return.
play. Yep.
Yeah. Then they imploded the link. Now we opened up Lincoln Financial Field the next year. And I think that's when we lost to the Panthers that year because Ricky Manning Jr. had 3 interceptions in that one game in the playoff run we had. And then we finally made it to the Super Bowl. We beat Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
Because that was the year when I think Brian Dawkins hit Algie Crumpler 2 on the seam route that year.
Destroyed him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to play all this back in my mind the way we're talking.
And I mean, it's been at this point 20 years. So it's been a while
and
for sure.
We finally made it. So I'm trying to figure out, like, you talking about leading up to that. Like, I felt like we could have almost had a dynasty, seriously. You
I
know,
mean, you borderline almost did have a dynasty, right? I mean, there was a sheer decade where Philadelphia was like always in that talk of just great defense, beautiful offense, and always having a chance to just to take that leap.
yeah, and it was a tremendous ride. I enjoyed every moment of it, but the leaders we had in place, it was incredible. I can remember Sean McDermott when I first got to Philadelphia. He was carrying Andy Reid's wife's bags off the airplane. Yeah, make that make sense. Howie Roseman was an intern for Joe Banner. Um, I'm just trying to
Dang.
think of all the successful guys. On that staff, I think Leslie Frazier was a head coach. Steve Spagnuolo was a head coach. Brad Childress at one point became a head coach. Pat Shermer at one point became a head coach. Let me think.
Was that when you were in Cleveland, or was that
I'm in Philly. Talking Philly.
Oh,
These,
we didn't know. Did you play for Pat Shermer when he was the head coach in Cleveland?
yeah, but I played for Eric Mangini 1 year, and then so Mike Holmgren became the GM in Cleveland. Tom Heckert, no, he became Mike Holmgren became the president. Tom Heckert left Philadelphia and went to Cleveland to be the GM. Rest in peace, Tom. And then after the year of Mangini in Cleveland, they hired Pat Sherman to be the head coach after Eric Mangini. So my first year in Cleveland, I was with Mangini. And then my next 2 years in Cleveland, I was with Coach Shermer.
I got you. And I mean, Cleveland loves to pick from Philly. Andrew Barry, their GM, he's from us too. Now, I do want to ask, obviously, kind of portrayed into the whole media side of things. Was the T.O. and Donovan McNabb relationship that bad, or was it a little bit more just blown up?
I think it was both. The media loved with it. I don't think their relationship was that bad. I feel like T.O. was one of those guys where he was just a straight shooter. Like no matter who it was, it didn't matter if it was his best friend. It really don't matter if his mom. Like he's just gonna be a straight shooter and kind of call a spade, if so to speak. And if he felt like you weren't working hard, he's gonna tell you weren't working hard. But I think all that I think that came to a head because remember, I think T.O. was trying to get a deal, and I think Donovan had said something about maybe not paying him, but then Brian Westbrook was up for a contract, and then Donovan was kind of like saying, "Yeah, we need to pay him." So the money and the business side obviously destroys a lot of stuff in life when you talk about, Coach Reed would always be like religion, politics, like money, and then like girlfriends, wives, like those three things right there. If you're intermingling that in my locker room, I'll try to get rid of you, right? And I think ultimately, when you start worrying about somebody else's finances and money and the money they're making and commenting on it, to me, that was more so of the problem than everything else that everybody was talking about.
Now, you did bring up Big Red and Andy Reid. My man has two Hall of Fame careers for two teams. What was it like playing for him? Just like a bigger than life character.
Man, I mean, he just know how to manage men. Like, there's no greater coach that know how to manage men. You're talking about getting 53 men to be on the same page all the time with all the drama, all the adversity, all the family problems that go on. Um, I just tip my hat to Coach Reed. And then I tip my hat to Mike Holmgren too, because Coach Reed learned how to manage those men under Mike Holmgren in that tree. So it's kudos to him. Unbelievable guy. I still text Coach Reed every once in a while just because, I couldn't have went to a better head coach that kind of taught me how to be a pro. And there's no harder worker. I remember there were days that Coach Reed, he would sleep in his office at the stadium, you know. So I have mad respect for him. He's the first one in the building, last one to leave, and he's still doing it to this day. What more can you say? Everything he's he's earned. Everything is deserved. Like he's worked his tail off to do it.
Yes, sir. Hey, shout out to Andy Reid, man. Goated for real. Buddy's a legend.
for sure.
Now in 2005, you did lead the league with 27 pass breakups, which is insane. Um, what was that like? You know, like kind of like getting some full on just recognition on your own name. Like league leading stats are crazy. That's pretty big.
Yeah, but I never really was a stat guy. I just look back at the career I had, and I just think about all the great players I played with, and in order for me to have those pass breakups and that stuff, obviously I played with some great defensive linemen that create pressure and havoc. And then a guy like Coach Johnson drawing up schemes and systems, he would move me around. I would get to play nickel some. I get to play dime. He would send me on blitzes. I would get sacks, um, forced fumbles in the backfield, some of that stuff. He was just super creative, and I thank God that I was able to earn his trust as a younger player through special teams that he allowed me to be in the system and in the scheme, playing around all those great players. We had some really good players on those teams, especially
Loaded, man.
defensive.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's my like entire what dude. Brian Dawkins in my household is like he's up there with just everybody else for real, man. Like that guy. What how was it like getting to play with just an all-time great of the game like Brian Dawkins?
Well, it's crazy because like if you meet Brian, he's like the most humble, undersized, smart, like he's just normal Joe. You would never know that he literally went into the bathroom stall before games and turned it to Weapon X, like literally. He had that second locker with all his Weapon X figurines and this and that. But who he was on the field versus off the field is definitely alter ego. But on the field, he was a maniac. He never turned down a collision. He was not turning down a collision, and it kind of fed through everybody. Like if he can do it, we all got to sacrifice and do it. And I think that's where the big hits came from. We used to look forward to you got jacked up on ESPN on Sundays. Like
Hmm.
you wanted to be on that. And the game has changed a lot. Um, that's another story. I understand the safety part of it, but I don't personally feel like it's football.
100%, especially when like that early to late to mid 2000s era was just such a beautiful time for sports as a whole. But football was like just different, man. I think it was Tatio Spikes was I think it was the NFL top 100 list or something along those lines. It might have been for Brian Dawkins, his 30 for 30, or not that, but the a football life, where he was like Brian Dawkins looked at him and he was like, Spice, I want to take his soul. And he was like, what? Like that guy. Yeah, nah, man. Um, now,
He talking about I want whatever he got.
yeah, yeah.
Keo was like, I want to take whatever he taking. I want some of that. Yeah.
And that guy was just out there on straight, just football and power of the good Lord for real. And that man was there to play.
That's it.
Um,
Yes, he was.
you being a DB, I have to ask you if you could just no specific order, top five hardest guys you had to cover, or not top five,
No
just
specific. No,
yeah, no, just
no.
as a whole.
So Terrell Owens was definitely one, and then especially when he came to Philadelphia, dealing with him in training camp, and then preseason because we were still practicing against ones, and then he went on to play. He went to Dallas, so we faced him twice a year. Then he actually played in Cincinnati when I was in Cleveland. So he was one of a kind. He was a tight end body running as a wide receiver. Okay, and we had Randy Moss in there who was a freak, right? He was a freak. And then Plaxico Burris, it's crazy. We talk about it. I could cover Plaxico, but his wingspan was so crazy that if Eli or Ben threw the ball in any vicinity, he was going to come down with it because he was 6'6" wide receiver. He was kind of like a Harold Carmichael. So I just gave you three. Then I could throw Steve Smith in there from the Carolina Panthers. He was a competitor. When we played him, he was a competitor. That's four I just gave you. Obviously, Chad Johnson was one of those guys that made a lot of plays. So I think I just gave you five. And I'm
You got
trying to
one.
think of that
All right.
six.
You got one more for just some
I know. So this guy's gonna go really underrated because to me he just played the game the right way, not just catching the football. I'm not gonna say he was tough to cover, but he was a tough matchup because he was gonna play the game the right way, especially where I was in my career, Hines Ward, right? We played Pittsburgh Steelers. So he was going to block and crack and do some stuff where he was just a fundamentally sound football player, right? Not just running routes that you got in the camera. I'm not saying he was the best route runner at his age and all that, but he was a good football player where he was going to block. Jerome Bettis was going to get a handoff. He's going to have to come up the field. And if you don't have your eyes in the right place, he could fake the block, run a goal or something. He was a technician.
Yes, sir. Hey, going back to Jerome Bettis, Brian Dawkins might be the only man to meet him in the hole and win. And that says it all right there, man. That play's glued in my
Yeah,
brain.
from a safety. Yeah, from a safety. Yes.
Um, Now going to 2007, I have to bring it up, right? Heartbreaking loss to the Saints in the divisional round. You completely just destroyed Reggie Bush. What was that like? Like just when you get back to the sidelines, like I bet the guys were going crazy.
So we played them earlier that season. I think like week 1. And they were kind of running that same play where pick route by the receiver on the linebacker when they caught us in coverage, and running back Reggie Bush would basically run a swing route to the flat. Linebacker would pick the backer, and he was up the seam. They ran it a couple of times, and they got some chunk yardage out of it. So Coach Johnson, hey, came up with a system and a scheme where we showed cover 1. I would walk off at the last second of the snap and kind of play a cover 2 shell. And Drew Brees read cover 1 right before the snap. So he was thinking I was going to be locked on receiver. And they was going to have that route that they beat us with in week 1 a lot, that game. And it just so happened that it timed up perfect where, hey, it was a win-win for the Eagles and for me. But it was like running through a cardboard box. It was. I probably would be ejected and fined today.
Oh, dude, what? They might toss you in jail for that hit for real, man. What? And then the following year, which was like, I remember me and my mom crying in my grandma's living room, man. That heartbreaking loss to the Cardinals, 32-25, after a 62-yard touchdown from a rookie Deshaun Jackson. And I know it's been a while, but after that, it almost felt evident that y'all were going back to the big game. What happened on that final drive?
Yeah, was that Kurt Warner?
Yeah.
That was the year Kurt Warner. We were out in Arizona.
Yep.
I'm trying to play that back. Did they run? They only had one big pass play. I think it was a play action pass, and they hit a deep post on us. Is that what it was?
Yes, that would, yeah. I can't remember. It wasn't Larry Fitz that scored the touchdown. It was someone,
Right.
but Larry
Yeah.
Fitz had a lot to do with it. He ended up
But
scoring.
didn't we have an injury? We were playing a backup quarterback when we went to Arizona, I thought.
Was it
That year?
I'm really peeling it back. Was that? Well, I mean, to be frank, I can probably look it up.
Yeah, I don't think McNabb was a quarterback that year for some reason when we went out there. Maybe AJ Feely, because I think.
Let's see who it was. Yeah. So Donovan was the quarterback there.
He was.
Yep.
Okay. So Michael Vick was the backup? Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
In the following year,
that
that's when Donovan went to
we both got traded
Washington.
after that season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I just remember it being a magical season for Arizona Cardinals because I think
Yes.
Kurt Warner was their quarterback. And they were just, they had home field. I felt like the team that had the home field that in that matchup, in that divisional round was going to be the winner. We had to go out there. We was playing against the 12th man, which would be their fans. Maybe the 13th man would be officials. I can say that now. So, everything was in their favor, and we just came up a little short. Heartbreaking, definitely. But, I mean, hey, it is what it is. But I just remember giving up that play action, play post, deep pass. I can't remember who the safety was. I don't think it was Mike Lewis. He was gone at that point. But I think we might have had a younger safety filling in that game, too, for some reason. Or somebody in the secondary was missing, I want to say.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Because it
sir.
was a communication break, I think.
And now that's so after that year, that's whenever Brian Dalton's ended up going to Denver. What was it like trying to just replace that guy's presence?
Well, I think we all left after that year. Because I went to Cleveland after that, didn't I?
Well, so
After
when
we lost to
I'm just going based off of just straight Google at this point, but so at the
so
following
I'm
year, so in 2009 is when you had 5 picks, and then after that is when you went
that's
to
when I so
yeah.
we all left after we lost to Arizona. We all left. So Dawkins went to Denver, right? I went to Cleveland. Um, Chris Gokon went to Cleveland. He was a linebacker. Michael Vick took over the quarterback role in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Then they brought in like Namdi Ashma, I think.
Nnamdi Asomugha, which was one of the biggest busts of a contract in the team's history.
I want to say they brought him in from Oakland.
That was 2010 for the Dream Team because they brought Vince Young in too, and he made the comment and everything, and then that just didn't pan out too well at all. They brought in DRC, Dominic Rogers Cromartie too.
Okay. So so I left and went to Cleveland in 2009. You're telling me that Donovan was still the quarterback in 2009 in Philly?
Oh well, no. So, what
We all
I guess the years kind of stagger some. So what I was seeing was so Brian Dawkins left the year after 08, and then after 09, you and Donovan both got traded. So you had one more year left in Philly. Y'all ended up losing to the Cowboys in the divisional round, and then that's whenever kind of just the whole band
right.
disbanded.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Dawk did leave 1 year before I left. I see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And now going to Cleveland, which you kind of touched up on it some, but like you still went out on a pretty high note. I believe you had a 60-yard pick six against the Bengals. I mean, you still had some burn to you. How did you kind of know that it was time to maybe just step away?
Well, I didn't want to be like a journeyman where you just go from team to team because I felt like my heart and my loyalty was to people too. Meaning, from that Andy Reid tree, when I went to Cleveland, I knew Mike Holmgren had a relationship with Andy. Tom Hecker drafted me in Philadelphia. He was the GM in Cleveland. So, it was still like, it was still family, like ultimate family. And then when I became a free agent out to Cleveland, I felt like I would be surrounded by people or taking deals where I didn't really necessarily know if I could truly trust that someone would do right by Sheldon. Meaning there were a couple of teams that called, but I just didn't feel like so if you're not on opening day roster as a veteran, and I've seen it happen to veterans, as soon as they release you or cut you, your pay stops. You know, if they're not willing to give you a signing bonus, and I had a pretty good year my last year in Cleveland. I had a really good season. Well, if they're not willing to give me a signing bonus, then that kind of means like at any point you're replaceable
Scrappy.
because there's no guarantee. So when all that stuff was coming down the pipeline, I was like, you know what? It's a young man's game anyway. So I just said I'd go back to South Carolina and be a dad.
Yes, sir. Well, Sheldon, dude, I got 1 minute left on this Zoom meeting. I don't have the pro for it, but dude, pleasure meeting you, Sheldon, for real, dog. This has been great.
Absolutely. Anytime. We'll do this anytime, brother.
Dude, go Birds.